everyone, and welcome to Stan the Wine Man TV. I am your host, Stan Rattan, and this is the Blue Collar Wine Show, where I help you spend your wine dollars wisely. Sorry guys, I've been away for a little bit. I think I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. It's super busy where I work, and this is August, which is the busiest month of the year. It's been crazy. We're running a 3.5 man department with 2 guys. Scott and I are doing it together, and it's a lot of work. So, you know, I am making excuses because they're legit excuses. But I'm glad to be back. I'm going to try and keep on my schedule. I always say that, and I'm going to try very hard to do that from here on out. This is the second Washington Wine Month, August. The original, and the one that's most important to me, is in March. I think they switched to August because of the Taste of Washington, but I'm not positive about that. But they started it a while back. So Washington has 2 Washington Wine Months. A little superfluous, I think, but that's okay. We're still going to review a couple of Washington wines. This particular one is a second label of Isenhower Winery, Isenhower Cellars, out of Walla Walla, Washington. And they call this lineup Photobomb. So, cool name. I think Brett Isenhower mentioned why he calls it Photobomb, and I forgot. It has something to do with the dog or the kids or something and getting into a photo, and they decided that would be a great name for a wine label. Brett and his wife Denise own Isenhower Cellars, and Jason Fox is their assistant winemaker. But Brett is the winemaker. By the way, I think that's kind of funny that his name is Brett. Interesting name for a winemaker, because Brett is not always a friend of wine. Just saying. Just thought about that when I was thinking about his name for some reason. So we have 3 whites, 1 red. We're going to get started right off the bat. The whites roll in at $11.99 or $12, and the red, the cab, runs in at $14, $13.99. So we're going to give it a little rinse here. The cool thing, I've talked about this many times, about second labels, is that they tend to be, of course, less expensive. They're a way for a winery to get a little bit of cash flow while they're trying to sell their upper tier wines. So this is the Photobomb 2019 Pinot Gris. There you go. Little shout out to Scott Murphy. I know, Murphy, you said I haven't done any of the wines, of your wines lately, and here we are doing them. So here's to you, Scott. Let's see what we get on the nose. Interesting color, a little gold hay color there, as you can see. So a ton of pear. Not very unusual to get pear on the nose of a Pinot Gris. I'm getting a little bit of a dusty component, which is cool. Meaning minerality. I like minerality in my whites. I don't always expect them from New World wines necessarily. Definitely Old World whites have that minerality to them. But this has just a little bit of a dustiness to it. But definitely melon, pear, and apple. Let's see what we get on the palate. Simple, straightforward Pinot Gris. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not exciting. I get apple skin, a little bit of pear in the background. The acidity is fresh, but not powerful. Most of you don't expect that from a Pinot Gris necessarily. It's definitely a wine that, people wouldn't mind paying $12 for. I think it falls right in that classic category of the right price to the quality, which is nice. Just a slight bitter edge to it. So if you had this with food, that would go away. So you've had to, let's say you had some chicken or some cheese or something like that, you would not get that bitterness on the backside. But nothing special. It's just a really well-made, easy drinking Pinot Gris. I'm going to go C+. Just above average. Let's move on to the 2019 Photobomb Sauvignon Blanc. This again rolls in at $12, $11.99. Cool label, nice marketing, good package. Interesting, I tasted a Sauvignon Blanc that was in a plastic bottle. I'm not going to say who's doing it, but they thought it was funny. The wine salesperson said, I think that plastic bottles are going to overtake cans. That's a question I'd like you to answer me. Do you think that we'll get to a point where plastic bottles will be preferred over cans of wine? I've been doing a lot of canned wine episodes lately, and I'm curious to your take on it. Personally, I don't see that happening, but everybody's entitled to their thoughts and opinions, as we know. I just can't see people taking plastic over a can of wine that's so easy to dispose of and recycle. I know plastic is recyclable, but cans are much easier. So, really, really clear on this. Almost in gray gold, if there's such thing. Very, very clear wine. Let's see what we get on the nose. As you know, I'm very picky about Sauvignon Blanc. Sauvignon Blanc I tasted yesterday out of the plastic bottle was not very good. Hints of I get a little bit of white flour on this, which is really cool. Pear on this one as well. Tiny hit of apple, more like a red delicious apple. Yeah, let's see what we get on the palate. The acidity is there. It's not strong. It's not cutting, which I like in a Sauvignon Blanc, but it's there. It's good. It certainly isn't a bad Sauvignon Blanc. It's not flawed in any way. I get the apple skin, just like the Pinot Gris. A little bit of melon coming through as well, and a touch of pear. Once again, I say this is a Sauvignon Blanc you're paying $12 for. You're not going to feel like you got gypped. I think it falls right in the right price category for what you get here. Again, a solid Sauvignon Blanc, but nothing special. If you're washing down some clams or oysters or having some shrimp or something like that, this would be nice wine. You only spend $12. You're certainly not going to hate it. I don't believe. Has decent balance, not too much complexity at all. I'm going to go C+ on that one as well. So you got just above average wines for a second label. That's not bad. No flaws. Now let's move on to the 2019 Photobomb Chardonnay and Columbia Valley. These are all Columbia Valley fruit. Columbia Valley, I forgot to mention that. I practiced this a little bit. I think it's been about 3 weeks since I put up an episode. Again, Photobomb label is really cool. Chardonnay, let's give it a little rinse. Chardonnays are, can be kind of tough. I mean, that's, a lot of people like their Chardonnays oaky. Some people like no oak on them. I don't know if he oaks this or not. He uses 100% French oak for his Isenhower labels on his reds. Yeah, so it doesn't really say anything about 100% delicious, great. Marketing is such a cool thing. We were talking about that. So this is kind of a hay gold color, again. Very similar to the Pinot Gris, maybe a little bit more golden than the Pinot Gris. Let's see what we get on the nose. Definitely Chardonnay all over the nose, a little baking spice, which is cool. Yeah, definitely getting baking spice and pear. Yeah, and I really like baking spice on a Chardonnay. I don't know why. I'm kind of weird that way, maybe, but I do like that baking spice smell. Then you have to be careful with second label Chardonnays. Sometimes you'll use oak staves. Hopefully they don't use oak dust. They have oak ground up in a bag and they dip it into the Chardonnay. That's how they give it the oak flavor. There's a lot of different ways they can do it besides just putting it in an oak barrel, which is very expensive. So when you're looking at a $12 Chardonnay, you're probably not getting oak treatment on it. You're probably getting a stave or something that gives it imposes. And I'm not against that at all. Of course, if I were making wine and I wanted to get wine out there for $12, I would be doing the same thing. But I would not use a bag of oak dust. I just hate that flavor in wine. Let's see what we get on the palate. So it has that kind of oakiness, so he's obviously using some sort of stave or something to put in it. A spindle, sometimes they come in spindles, they just dip them into the neutral barrel to give it that oak flavor. This has a little bit of that. The baking spice comes through. I like the acidity on this Chardonnay as well, it balances it out. I don't get a lot of fakeness to this wine, a lot of makeup. There's a little bit, obviously the oak infusion is not an oak barrel. You can tell that when you're tasting it, but I think it's okay. I'm going to go C plus B minus on this Chardonnay. I think of all three whites, I think this one would appeal to Chardonnay drinkers that like a little oakiness on their wine, but it also appeal to somebody who just wants a nice fresh Chardonnay. And once again with food, it's going to change a little bit. This would be nice with roasted chicken, barbecued chicken, things like that. This would be really good. Nice and fresh and clean. I'm curious about the alcohol content on this. It's 13.1, so low alcohol. That's cool. What is the Sauvignon Blanc is 12.8? No, sorry. Is that 12.8? It is 12.8. I got it right the first time. And the Pinot Gris is 11 or 13. Yeah, this is 13.4. So the highest one is the Pinot Gris. Interesting. But yeah, C plus B minus. Now let's move on to the Cabernet Sauvignon. Now, believe it or not, winemakers will say that making white wine is harder than making red wine. Interesting. I've never sat down and really discussed that, but we've had a few wine tastings where winemakers have made that point, that it's harder to make whites than reds. Well, reds you can blend. You see, I know that. You can blend the reds, which you can work different barrels in there to give it a flavor, whereas not so much with whites, or at all. So this is a photobomb. This is a 2018 Cabernet Sauvignon. It rolls in at $14. I can smell it from here, so I'm very curious about it. Let's see what we get on it. Oh, very dark in color. Really dark in color. By the way, something I learned recently, I never really thought about it, but Mega Purple is a concentrated extract that they can use to darken wines in California. It can't be used in Washington State. It's illegal in Washington State to use Mega Purple. So the color you're seeing is the color that the winemaker intended it to be without any additional things added. So on the nose I get right from here I'm getting this smell from here, which is crazy. And it's kind of like a toasted marshmallow smell. But then you stick your nose in the glass, it kind of calms down, it turns into currants, ripe currants. Ripe currants with just an edge of earthiness. Dirt, you could say, but I don't say dirt, it's more baked earth. Currants, maybe even a hint, a slight hint of tobacco. A little bit of licorice as well. So let's see what we get on the palate. Soft tannins, good balance though. The currants come through really nicely. The earthiness is there underneath. I think it has good complexity for $14. I get a touch of licorice on the backside, a little bit of spiciness too that comes through at the end. Curious if Brett just uses a little bit of oak on this one. I know it's only $14, but he makes some pretty good cabs up in his Isenhower label. So he might be adding a little bit of that juice. You never know. That's the cool thing about second labels, is that you sometimes get the benefit of the first label. These are wines that they didn't necessarily feel could qualify for their upper tier wines that are more expensive, so they put them in their photobomb or second label. There's just a tiny hit of sweetness on the tannins right on the mid palate. Into the finish, you get a nice. There's a little bit of acid coming through on the backside. 18 was a great vintage in Washington State. I love the 18s. This is showing that, but it's also showing that Brett is paying attention to his cab that he's putting in the second label. Nice cab. Easy to drink, but it's serious enough that you realize it's a cab. It has a little tiny grip on the backside. Nice balance. Good integration of acidity, fruit, tannins. I like it. I'm going to go B on that. Best of the bunch is the Cabernet Photobomb. So yeah, I don't think anybody would be really upset to pay 14 bucks for this cab. In fact, they feel like they're getting a pretty good deal. So Washington's come a long way. It started out being mostly known for Riesling. Merlot does really well in Washington State, but now they've come on strong, and you see very many different varietals coming out and doing quite well in Washington State. Cab has come a long way. Chardonnay's come a long way. They do good Tempranillo, Cinsault, Grenache. The list goes on and on of the different whites or reds that they can make in Washington State, as well as many white wines. Thanks for taking a little time out of your day. I appreciate it very much. I hope to get back into a regular pattern of Mondays and Thursday episodes. That's what I want to do, and that's what I'm striving to do. I have quite a few new subscribers, and I need to do a shout out to them. I'm sorry I didn't get your names, but I will do that in the next episode, even though I promised it in the last one. It's been so long, I forgot. So now I'll do it in the one that comes out on Monday. I just want to give a shout out to those who have jumped on and subscribed to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. Tell your friends about this. You keep watching, and I'll keep helping you spend your wine dollars wisely.